There's hundreds of videos about the flood already on YouTube, most of them covering the history of the flood, what they can do, how they do it, and especially focusing on the Forerunner flood war. But I want to tackle a different topic. I want to tackle why the flood. By that, I mean, what is the purpose of the flood? And that's how I came up on the conclusion that the flood is not actually the bad guys. Many other YouTubers have dissected how the flood comes to be, but I was wondering, what if the flood is the test of the precursors to see if the Forerunners were actually worthy to inherit the mantle? I see three options for this. The flood is the final test for any one species in the galaxy. Since the precursors seeded life, they most likely seeded life in a bunch, if not all galaxies in the universe. I mean, consider how powerful the precursors seem to be. It's hard to imagine the Forerunners beating them. They filled the universe with life to see which species would rise above the others. Maybe humans always rose above and took care of the mantle in all the other galaxies they oversaw. Or maybe the precursors were human. As they advanced, they became the precursors and started seeding life all over. This has roots in how Bungie wanted to treat the humans as if they were Forerunners. Or maybe telling the Forerunners that humanity was supposed to inherit the mantle was to see how they would react. Beating the flood might be the test. If any one species can defeat the flood, whether alone or a group of species like the Covenant, then they would inherit the mantle. They would be responsible for that galaxy's safety. To add on to that, maybe no one species is supposed to inherit the mantle, and instead, the test is to see if the galaxy can come together to fight the flood. On that note, we know the Forerunners can tap into energy from another universe. Maybe the flood is still out there, either in another universe or intergalactic space. That was the precursors' way of seeing if the galaxy was ready to have inheritors. The flood is the final test, as in, are you willing to give up your life and individuality and become part of the flood? If not, then how can you be expected to put aside petty squabbles? The flood would be a galactic or universal peaceful race. They would have no reason to fight or kill, as they are all part of one mind. If the Forerunners had been willing to be part of the flood, which came from the precursors, then they too could be the precursors and share the mantle along with the power. Hell, in that vein, maybe humanity was tested first, and after failing, it became a test for the Forerunners. Maybe the test for the Forerunners was seeing how they would react to the humans invading their space running from the flood. Would they help them? Would they join them? Or, as it turned out, they broke the humans in a two-sided war and then still failed against the flood in the end. The thing that made me start thinking this way is the domain. The domain is kind of like the Forerunner internet, but it came from the precursors. All Forerunners' minds get uploaded to it upon dying, but the domain is so much more than that. That's why I think the Gravemind is kind of like the living version of the domain, while the domain is more of a technological version of the Gravemind. This is not a long video, it's just things that I've always thought about the flood. I want to have a serious discussion about the intent of the flood. What was the ultimate purpose of the flood? Surely the precursors, who were so above everything else in the universe, or at least the galaxy, would be above revenge. Everyone cares about what the flood does, what it can do, what it's done, the history of the flood. But let's have this discussion. Leave your thoughts in the comments of why the flood even came to exist. I'm sure it was beyond just petty revenge from the precursors. Have a good one.